So, I have something that I think is very, very interesting to show you. And I suppose this video is aimed a little more at developers than players, for reasons that we'll see, but I think it's interesting either way. So this is a game called, what was it called? The Dubious Delivery. And it is an in-browser game, which is important. So let me jump in, show you the gameplay quickly, show you what's going on in this particular game world, and then it will not take long, and then we'll talk about some critique that I think is a good point that people seem to miss for game design and for choosing good games and things like that. So yeah, stick around and see that. But let's have a look at the game first. So if we run the game, it's a Unity engine, and we can maximize it here, and presto, we are in a full 3D world. We are sitting in this truck that we cannot get out of. In fact, it looks like we've been welded into it, in this happy little sort of suburban bit of paradise, a little town somewhere. And we have this GPS telling us to deliver packages. We have 6 packages remaining. These are the packages, and we can use obviously the mouse to look around and to click on things. If we click on the blue, we can see out the rear view camera, and we can move with WASD. So if I press forward, we drive; with left to right, we steer. And what we are looking for on this GPS that isn't really a GPS is these exclamation marks. You can see there's the orange one there, and obviously this horrible yellow text appears. Well, yellow and red text appears all over the screen. And I'm choosing to drive here, but we don't really need to. Once we're here, we press the red button, and we launch a package out of the window, and we have successfully delivered a package. We get ourselves back on the road. And the storyline says that this is a terrible old vehicle with bad brakes, which is why it is very sluggish to respond. Are you going to walk across the road? Yeah, we can't hit people. Just demonstrating that. Didn't really want to drive her over. And we can turn around the corner. There's a speed bump here. Dunk-a-dunk. And I mean, you can see all the physics of the speed bump and things there. And while the GPS doesn't actually lead us to where we need to go, which it should do, to be an actual real GPS, we can find the next exclamation mark pretty smoothly and press a button and deliver it. And that is it. That's pretty much where the gameplay begins and ends. And I delivered all 6 packages earlier, and it didn't. It just sort of said packages delivered in green text on the GPS, and nothing really happened. So I'm not going to take you too much further into the gameplay of driving around. I do recommend, if you're looking for a gaming experience, to come and hop on, give this a go. It is literally just a couple of clicks in your browser window. It didn't work terribly well for me on Firefox on Linux. You might have a better experience. Otherwise, I do recommend Chrome, because this is in Chrome and it's working perfectly smoothly. So we are going to escape out of that, and we're just going to reload the page so I'm not distracted. And so that's the end of the gameplay. If that is all you are here to see, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, because those are good engagement things that helps you in your YouTube experience and me and my YouTube growth. Otherwise, thank you for watching. But I do recommend sticking around for the critique, because we're going to talk about something I think fairly fundamental in game design. And that is, it doesn't matter how good your engine is if you don't really have gameplay mechanics. And I think a lot of AAA companies, development studios, for a while now have not remembered that, have not understood that. They've all been hyper-focused on building this fantastic engine, that really is pushing the boundaries of what is possible. And the gameplay has suffered, and then they cram it full of DLCs and microtransactions and things like that, desperately wondering why people aren't playing their incredible engine. And you want more from a game than to just run around and everything looks good. And it's weird, because I think the player base has driven that a little bit. I remember conversations of people going, look how amazing this one is. Look, it's incredible. And you're like, well, what's the gameplay? And they say, oh no, you shoot these things along this kind of sort of semi-railroaded environment, and that's it. You just shoot the stuff, and you collect more guns, and you do more shooting, and you get to the end, and that's the game. You shoot the bigger, harder thing to shoot at the end, and presto. And there was game after game after game like that rolled out, but people sort of liked it just because it had better graphics, whereas games with much better storylines and things like that fell behind a bit because they didn't have an amazing engine, and I think people weren't quite realizing what they were doing, what they were going for, and wondering why gaming was unsatisfying, because they were just doing it for the way it looks and not for the gameplay experience. And I think it's important that we need to push harder against this narrative, and remind people that it doesn't matter how good your experience is, you need a game to play. But at the same time, I'm not trying to say that this is you don't need a good environment. I mean, it's obvious that people want an immersive experience, and the better your engine, the more immersive it is. But it shouldn't be the priority over the game design. Now, this particular experience that I'm looking at here, the link will be in the description. I do recommend coming and giving it a go and giving it some gameplay, because it is good, and the dev definitely needs some support. The reason this jumped out at me is because of how incredible it is, considering it's in a browser. I remember watching the internet being sort of rolling in. I remember reading a magazine about it and going, wow, what is this, how does it work? Way back, in sort of early high school years. And the amount of development that has happened in those 30 years is utterly mind-blowing. If I'd been told that this was what I would be doing, the 30 years in the future, I would have thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever. How could anybody possibly play a full 3D game in a browser window? It was quite hard to play a full 3D game on a computer back then. This was sort of Doom 2 just coming out, kind of that kind of sort of gameplay environment. The tools are now at hand to hopefully fairly trivially make a good immersive space. I mean, they always have been there, depending on how much effort the player has to do for the immersion. But it's just the tools are becoming really incredible. But we have this terrible tendency over the last few years of games coming out, that there is too much of a focus on the tool sets to build an immersive space, and not enough to build an immersive context. And that's one of the things that I'm always on about, is that how do you make a good game out of good tools? It doesn't matter how polished and pretty it looks, there still has to be a good game in there. And that's kind of what I'm looking for here. It's why I like indie games so much, because these are developers that don't normally have access to these amazing tools, so they're forced to make good games to make them try and stand out against the good environment crowds. So how would we turn this into a good game? Well, first of all, sounds. The tab was not muted or anything. There was just no sounds for this particular experience. Obviously, sort of a bigger kind of meta goal set. You should know why. How many packages you have to deliver. You should be coming from somewhere meaningful and going to somewhere meaningful, and getting some kind of pressure and context to deliver the packages and things like that. And my preference would be to make this into a horror game and have things get creepy and creepy, and eventually you have to try and escape or something like that. And sort of a proper Lovecraftian monsters appearing manner. I think that would be an amazing game, and probably very popular, depending on the depth and the storyline behind it. And really, that's the ultimate thing, is to give it more storyline. Who am I? Where am I? Why am I doing this bad delivery? Why are people accepting me just flinging the packages out the window? What is the meta context here? What is the narrative that I'm working within? I mean, there is a lot that needs to be done to this game. Just a menu to start the game with, and to manage the controls, the sound controls would be a really good benefit here. I'm thinking, despite it not having been mentioned, that this is a prototype, a look at this engine rather than here is a game. Yeah, possibly he had a bad experience with a delivery to his house, and he tried to just do something mildly insulting to in response. I don't know. I'm just guessing wildly here. But yeah, that's all I came ready to say was look, firstly there are some amazing tools out there, really good engines that you can just stick into your browser, and 2 clicks and I'm playing a full 3D driving sim game, which is nuts. It really that blows my mind. And the second thing is, it doesn't matter how good it is. It doesn't matter how amazing your engine is. If you don't have, you could have remade this in RPG Maker, and it could have been a massively full-fledged game with incredible gameplay experience, and I would rather play that than this full 3D sim thing. So yeah, the priority should be good gameplay. If you combine good gameplay with a good engine, a good sort of game space like this, you have an insane experience that I think would compete with the AAA studios, because they are also focused fully on the engine and not that much on the gameplay. The gameplay seems to be a secondary consideration, and it should be the primary one. So that's it. That's all I really have to say about that. Is start either developing your games or choosing your games based on their story. Stop choosing them based on how pretty they are. It's the wrong way to get good games. But thank you for listening. Come give this developer some love, and come give some comments and upvotes. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.